Today is Monday, December 21st, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Atlanta. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, she comes to Georgia to campaign for John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock in Columbus, Georgia. We were there, and we'll show you what she had to say. In Marque, Texas, the police department, they have released body camera footage of the officer who shot and killed a 22-year-old Joshua Feast earlier this month. We'll talk with attorney Ben Crump and Lakeisha Feast, Joshua's mother. Also, a coalition of black pastors in Georgia say Senator Kelly Loeffler's attacks on Raphael Warnock are also attacks on the black church. We'll talk to two of those pastors. President-elect Joe Biden gets his coronavirus vaccine today, and doctors continue their efforts to convince people to do the same. We'll give you the latest on COVID-19. A Dallas couple's cars were set on fire and Trump 2020 was painted on their house. We will share more with you. Plus, recently released body camera footage won by police officers in Boston show them deliberately running into protesters with their cars. One officer even bragged about it. And a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee has been removed from the U.S. Capitol and will be replaced by one honoring a civil rights icon, Barbara Johns. A Kansas City newspaper is apologizing for its racist coverage over the years. A Virginia Beach black man is handcuffed for a crime he had nothing to do with. And Morris Day is here. He has new Christmas music that we'll preview. Yo, it is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling.
We're broadcasting live from Atlanta, Georgia. Today is the beginning of the second week of early voting for the three Georgia runoff races. Three races that involving, of course, John Ossoff. You also have Raphael Warnock. And then you have a state position where an African-American wants to be the first elected statewide in Georgia in 20 years. Well, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, she was in the Peach State today. She was in Columbus, Georgia, holding a campaign rally for all three of them. Of course, the runoff is January 5th, and she took time out of her schedule. Now, it was supposed to be a rally happening actually right now, but because of the bill that was being voted upon in Congress as we speak, she had to return to Washington, D.C. She still is a U.S. Senator from California. But she did have this to say at today's rally.
Where's BJ? Where'd you go? How about BJ Tillman? Can we please give it up for her? So, BJ, I don't know what she doesn't do because she does everything. You got to know about her because she is an incredible leader. She, through this campaign up to November, was organizing folks, was registering folks, everyone from young students to the younger of the oldest of us. She has been organizing people and still continues to be such a leader. And when I look at someone like BJ, I know our future is bright. Let's give it up for BJ. All right, well, it is so good to be back in Georgia. It is so good to be back in Georgia. And I am here first and foremost to thank you all on behalf of Joe Biden and myself for doing what you did in November. Because you did what no one thought could be done. You did what no one thought could be done. And you made a statement not only about who is Georgia, what is the voice of Georgia, what are the priorities of Georgia, what Georgia will not allow to be denied about Georgia, but you also made a statement about who we are as a country. You allowed people around this nation to say, don't ever put us in a box and tell us who we are. We will tell you who we are. That's what you did. That's what you did right here in Columbus. And so I am here, first and foremost, on behalf of Joe Biden and myself, to say thank you. Thank you for what you did. And of course, no good thank you comes without asking for a little bit more. So, January 5th. January 5th. You know, 2020 has been a difficult year. 2020 has been rough. You know, people making jokes about 2020, like, we want this thing to be over. But you know what? As far as I'm concerned, Georgia, Columbus, 2020 ain't over until January 5th. That's when 2020 will be over. That's when we'll get this thing done. Because as you know, everything is at stake when it comes to the need to elect Reverend Raphael Warnock, to elect John Ossoff, to elect Daniel Blackman. Everything is at stake. Everything that was at stake in November is at stake leading up to January 5th. Look at what's happening right now in this state. We're looking across the country at so much devastation. People who have lost family members, lost time being able to go to work, lost time in terms of our children's education and the days of their education they have missed. There has been so much loss these years, and in particular this year. We're looking here in Georgia at the fact that 1 in 7 families is describing their household as being hungry. We're in the midst of a hunger crisis in America, and it's hitting Georgia hard. 1 in 7 describing hunger in their households. 1 in 6 Georgian families are describing an inability or difficulty to pay rent. 1 in 4 small businesses in Georgia have gone out of business or are about to go out of business. And what we are here to talk about, and why everyone, all the leaders are here right now together, because if you're here, you're a leader, is to say that we will have our voices heard. We will not let anyone silence us. We will speak up about what we need. We will tell you what we want, and we will make it happen through our vote. And just like you did, you will do it again. And here's the thing, you know, I was here, Joe Biden was here, we were all here together in Georgia before November. And remember how we knew what was at stake and the challenge ahead of us. We knew, like Stacey Abrams been telling us and organizing against it, that there would be powerful people trying to prevent us from voting. We knew the kind of games they would play to make it difficult, to suppress our vote, to make it confusing, to discourage us. And in November we talked about that and we said we know the challenge that is before us. Well, the same challenge exists today.
Of course, VP-elect Kamala Harris was here because Democrats understand how critical these 2 seats are. If Democrats win these 2 seats, that means they control the United States Senate. It'll be 50-50. And once she is inaugurated, she would break any tie. This is also important because it would solidify Georgia as a swing state, a state that is no longer solid red. And so all of this is at stake here. And so that's what you're looking at here. Joining us right now on our panel, Dr. Avis Jones-Weaver, political analyst, Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice, EPA, Julian Malveaux, economist, president, Emera Bennett College. First and foremost, I'll start with you, Avis, and that is when you look at what is happening in this state, it is a changing state. The work that you heard Kamala Harris say, the work that Stacey Abrams and the Fair Fight and others did, registering people, going out there, putting folks on the rolls, the fact that you're seeing significant increased black turnout, Latino turnout, young votes turnout. This is how you change a state. And so they want to constantly have the momentum. Last week, 1.3 million people have already voted in person or via absentee balloting. And so Democrats, they want to win this on the ground. Republicans want to saturate the airwaves. But the reality is there's no more airtime to buy. This is going to come to turnout. And that's why today's rally was so important. And going to a place like Columbus that's not in metro Atlanta, but that has a sizable black population.
Absolutely true. I mean, if you look at where we have been with Georgia, what we're seeing right now is a state that is shifting demographically. And then you compound that with the just tremendous organizing that's been happening at the grassroots level with, not only Stacey Abrams, but if you look at what LaTosha Brown is doing and others who are based in Georgia all the time, various members from the Black Women's Roundtable, there has been a lot of work that has been put in to give the outcomes that we saw in November. And guess what? They have not let up one iota. They are still out there doing the work to get that turnout because they know that everything that they fought for in November is on the line with this particular runoff. And if anything, they're just doubling down and going even harder so that they can make sure that that turnout is at least at the level that it was for the November election. Hopefully it'll be enough to take them over the finish line.
When you look at what is happening in this state, when you look at, again, these critical rural areas, Mustafa, it means going there, spending the time there. We were in Savannah on Friday. We were in Athens on Saturday. The folks at Black Voters Matter, I've been talking to them. They're focused on places that's not Atlanta. They are focused on these rural areas because they want to increase the turnout in these places.
Yeah, it's amazing that folks are everywhere, it seems like all the time. And they're actually making sure that they're talking to folks who normally or sometimes actually get, unfortunately, don't get the attention that they deserve. So I know, Daniel Blackman, who's a good friend of mine, that he's always been focused on rural communities. I know Reverend Warnock very similarly understands the value and the power of making sure that you're creating a coalition that touches everyone. So it's exciting to see so many doors continually getting knocked on and making sure everyone know that they are valued, that they're going to be honored by these folks, and that they are needed to make it across the finish line.
Julian Malveaux, this is going to be obviously a very, very, very close race. President-elect Joe Biden, he was here in Georgia last week. He was in Metro Atlanta. Of course, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris going out to Columbus. We saw Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia. He has been here. Also, Julian Castro has been here with John Ossoff. And so no word if former President Barack Obama plans to come to Georgia. But Democrats certainly need to pull out all of their guns in order to combat Republicans. They are the incumbents, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. And so, so the question is, I doubt, there's no word whether Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton or others are going to come here. But again, they have to pull out all of the stops to make sure to get their folks out in order to win.
Roland, you're absolutely right. And Mustafa is right about the whole issue of where people are going. Jamie Harrison in South Carolina has a pact that talks about I forget the name of it. It's like the end of the road pact. But it's people who have never been touched by political figures. So they feel completely alienated. So going to Savannah, going to rural Georgia, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not so sure, to be honest with you, how much sense it makes to bring an Obama or a Clinton in when you have that Barbie lookalike running around talking about radical socialism, etc., because we don't want to alienate those who are on the fence. I think it would be great, especially if President Obama would come. But I also
there's nobody on the fence. There's nobody on the fence. Nobody's on the fence. This is not an on the fence election. They've decided. The issue is you got to get them out. And so bringing in, and Obama brings cameras, brings attention. You got to get people excited and get them out. Nobody is like, there are no undecideds in Georgia.
But Roland, seriously, okay, getting them out is one thing, but who are you getting out? Bringing an Obama in, does that bring the crazy, your word, crazy, white people out? Because right now, at this moment, you have these crazy, white people who are basically rallying themselves around, what's that girl's name? The Barbie. And
Kelly Loeffler.
Okay, I didn't forget her name. I just don't call fools names in public.
No,
anyway.
But here's the deal, though. Here's the deal. They're talking about bringing in Trump, bringing in Mike Pence. So guess what? You got to match big gun with big gun.
Okay, I don't disagree with you. I'm just thinking ahead. At the end of the day, what is most important?
Ahead too. Try to win.
The most important thing is turnout. The most important thing is turnout, and the turnout has to come from places where we haven't seen it before. We have to see our folks in these rural areas where no one has ever seen them. It's not enough that Raphael Warnock, and I bless him, a friend, good people. It's not enough that he can get his church out. It's like, who else can he get out? Same thing with Ossoff. I mean, he is engaged younger people, which is important, but who else can they get out? Meanwhile, you got these people. I'm not trying not to curse on your show. So these Maryland farming idiots essentially are attempting at every end to basically minimize the importance of the black vote. Loeffler's attack on Warnock is ridiculous, but at the same time, what's real here? I'm not trying to be, contrarian here. I'm just trying to say, let's think ahead. And I do think that turnout is critical. It's the most critical thing. It's really the only thing.
But okay, I'm confused. Because if we know turnout is critical, it kind of makes sense to bring out the most popular Democrat you have in the country. To me, it kind of makes sense, Avis, that you would be impressing upon Obama to make an appearance here, probably on maybe next Monday. Because here's the deal. Early voting ends December 30th or 31st, depending upon your county. Then the election is January 5th. You've got Christmas on Friday. You've got New Year's Eve the following Thursday, Friday. Then you got that last weekend, which is January 2nd through the 5th. That's that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Bottom line is here. I'm looking forward as well. And I'm saying I'm looking forward to win. This is a turnout election. And if Obama comes out, first of all, the folk on the right, we know where they stand. But the issue is, in runoffs, Avis, typically Republicans do better because Democrats don't come out. That's why you bring your big guns. That's why you put them on the camp. That's why you flood the zone. That's why if you're the Democrats and you're sitting here in Georgia, that's when you ask, look, Will Packer, Lynn Whitfield, Kiki Palmer, Common. They did events this weekend, Friday and Saturday, in Savannah as well as in Clayton County. This is where you sit here and say, fine, you bring back Morehouse men, Sam Jackson and Spike Lee. You figure out all the folk you can bring. You sit here and flood all these different cities. You send them to Warner Robins and Columbus and Savannah. You send them all over to these places. You send them to Augusta, to Macon, to all the different places, because that, at the end of the day, that's how you get it. When we were in Albany, they said point blank that the turnout, the African-American turnout, was 58%. Wow. 58. What happens if you move that to 65, to 68, to 70? That could win the election.
It certainly could. I mean, the key to Georgia is the black turnout, point blank, period. The degree to which you can maximize that turnout is the degree to which we can breathe a sigh of relief in terms of being able to flip the Senate. And I happen to agree. You want to be able to pull out all your guns. Now, I would happen to think that if you ask me, the most popular Democrat in America is actually Michelle Obama. But I don't believe she's made it plain that she is not a huge fan of politics.
She ain't campaigning. First of all,
exactly.
Remember, Michelle Obama did nothing in person leading up to November 3rd.
You're right.
She did no events.
Videos.
Virtual, exactly. But she did no rallies.
Exactly. She did no rallies. She did 2 videos that I thought were very compelling. I'd love to see her do that again. And I would definitely love to see a Barack Obama on the ground, as well as any and everybody who will motivate people to turn out. I mean, this is not the time to hold anything back. You bring everybody to the table that can get that next person to be motivated and that next person to be energized and that next person to take the step to vote early or to show up on election. Because let me tell you, we already know we have to overperform to be able to get the type of impact that we need, because we know the other side will do everything they can to steal the voting power away from Black people. So we can't just show up. We have to show up at a magnified scale, knowing that part of what we're looking to do is going to be challenged, if not thrown out all the way, by shenanigans by the other side.
But Avis, what about the backlash?
Mustafa, the thing there is no backlash. It's a runoff. It's a runoff. But what's the backlash? It's a run. Okay, so how about this here? Republicans don't give a damn about Democrat backlash, bringing in Trump, bringing in Pence. They don't care. They're saying, oh, if Trump and Pence can juice turnout, bring them in. That's what you do. You don't run saying, well, they already are not going to vote for you. So your job is say, if I can get more of my people out and more of my people than more of their people, then I win. But I ain't never heard a strategy, well, I think I can win if I don't fire all my bullets, but I might be able to win this thing. Hey, I believe you go down with no bullets left. That's just me, Mustafa.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. So I think it's good to have former President Obama there, but I'd also have Frankie Beverly and Mays and Big Boy and Andre 3000, because those are individuals that folks in Georgia and across the country want to see, want to hear from. So as you said, you got to utilize everything that you got. So let's get the folks that people listen to, care about, honor, and value in the mix.
Hey, look, all I'm saying is this here, Julian. We've been on the ground now for 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to be here through January 5th. We had Glenda Carr from Higher Heights on here. They hit the poll from Hit Strategies. I think it was 35% of the Black women poll did not know the runoff was January 5th. Okay? Oh. Because they had to move the rally. We were in Columbus today. There were people Black people in Columbus who did not know that Kamala Harris was there. Wow. We were actually at the gas station. No, hold on a second. We were at the gas station, filling up to drive back to Atlanta. And we see, I thought she had already left, but she clearly had a meeting and then they left later. So all of a sudden, motorcycles come by, motorcade, black woman, the car next to us, she goes, man, something big must be going on. I said, well, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is in town. She said, really? I didn't know that. Now, I don't know about you. Columbus ain't that big. Now, granted, it was a last-minute deal. The thing dropped on Saturday. The drive-in rally, they were filled to capacity. But I can tell you, when Joe Biden was here, even though the place was filled to capacity, the whole street was lined with people. There were a few people who were there for Harris. But again, that's one of those things to me where you want to bring in a wave of heavy hitters and people know what's going on, and it's just constant awareness, because again, there are people in this state who don't even realize there's a runoff on January 5th. Julian, final comment.
First of all, I want to commend you for being there in Georgia. I think it's really important that you're there and you're sharing really important information. Secondly, I agree with you that there's not enough information out there and it needs to be out there. Thirdly, my concern is that I'm not trying to be a contrarian, although I've been accused of that many times. But I just think that we need to think about how this plays out. Obama is a lightning rod for white people. And so are many others. And so while we strategically use folks like Vice President-elect Kamala, I think we also just need to think about some of this. I think Mustafa is right in terms of who people listen to. And I'm just concerned. You said who's going to vote for is who's going to vote for, but I don't want these folks to get all ginned up and decide they're going to vote more because they see this as some liberal socialist plot, which is what the little blondie is saying about Reverend Warnock. Maybe I'm just being cautious. Maybe I'm getting old.
Here's the deal. I think you getting a little too cautious there, Julian. Bottom line is, it's a black man already running for the U.S. Senate. So hell, they scared of black folk. Obama ain't gonna be nothing different because they probably already scared of Warnock. All right, folks, let's go to this case in Texas we've been covering with the Marque Police Department. They have released body camera footage of the officer who shot Joshua Feast earlier this month. On December 9th, Feast was shot by Officer Jose Santos across the street from his uncle's home. Here is the body camera footage that was released.
Thousand block of Purtle, send me units now. Show me your hands! Show me your hands! Show me your hands!
Help me.
41, we're in front of 1010 Purtle. Stage medics.
Help me, please.
First unit to get here, I need you to recover the gun. He dropped it just outside of Dodge Charger. Stay on the ground, do not move. Put your arms out to the side, Josh. Josh, put your arms out to the side. Hey, stay inside for me. Stay inside for me. It's somewhere on the ground. He pulled it out his waistband as he took off running. (4113), you copy traffic? (10-4), just make sure you copy traffic. Hey, keep an eye on that house, too. This house? Yeah, the Cyrus's house. 41, see if County and Tech City can send units out here. We got a large crowd starting to gather. Josh, talk to me. On log that 34 had to pick up the gun because we got a large crowd. Rob, please don't start, Rob. I'm gonna talk to you in a little bit, Rob.
I heard the gunshot, then I heard you talk about showing your hands. See, the gunshots fired first, then you talk about showing your hands. I heard that, man. Mom, then show me your hands. That's what fucked up shit.
Y'all back up. Y'all back up.
I heard that whole ass. I heard that. I heard you talk about a nigga. Wow. The first one.
41, I need units here quick. Step it up. I don't care where they come from. Y'all back up! Back up! Hey, first unit comes up, get that the guy in the white do-rag. Rob, he's the one instigating everything.
Still breathing, dog.
I can't get... Rob! Hey! Rob! Rob, I can't get medics here till y'all stop. Y'all just wait. Yeah, you go. You see this? I can't get medics over here till we get this figured out. He pulled out a gun. He got a couple felony warrants. He pulled a gun on me. 41, when I get supervisor here, I'm gonna need y'all to determine if we need to bring the medics in or carry him out. All right, let's put him in cuffs. 10-4, have him staged. We got a large crowd right now. Hey, buddy. I can't hear what you're saying. I got a lot of screaming.
Investigators say Feast was a person of interest and possibly connected to the recent shootings in the area. Now, according to Feast's uncle, the 22-year-old was outside talking to the mother of his child. That's when Officer Santos was driving down the street and made a U-turn. Santos pulled up and yelled Feast's name. Feast took off on foot, and then Officer Santos opened fire, striking Feast in the back. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who is representing the Feast family, says the body cam confirms that a defenseless man was shot in the back who posed no threat to Santos. Joining me now is attorney Ben Crump, as well as just pull up here. Give me 1 second. We're waiting for the mother to call. And so again, that footage came from the Houston TV station. We did not get the direct footage. We're still working on that. Ben Crump joins us right now. Ben, there's several different things here. First of all, that video was 5 minutes long. He shot very early in the video. You hear the officer saying, I got to wait to call in medics. Then toward the end there, you hear him say, let's put him in cuffs. He's already shot in the back. They made no effort to provide aid for him for almost 4 minutes.
Yeah, you know, Roland, as Monique Presley and I have discussed, he fails to do his duties as a first responder. You even hear the neighbors who came out the house said he's still breathing. Do something to help him. And the police tells them, no, you all stay back. And yet he won't do anything to try to help save his life. We believe that, you know, once we get into this case, if there was any chance that medical attention paid to Joshua Feast would have saved his life, that's going to be another charge on top of the unnecessary shooting of a defenseless man in the back as he ran away from him, Roland. And I just have to say this, because I want to give Lakeisha, his mother, time to talk when she comes on. The witness accounts out there on that video clearly say the officer never said stop. He never said freeze. And the only time, Roland Martin, that he said, put your hands up, is after he shot him and he's lying on the ground, bleeding out, dying.
One of the things that is also strange, you hear the officer saying to the crowd, get back, get back, get back, send units in as possible. And again, what is strange to me is that you shoot someone You offer no aid. Then your whole deal is get the crowd under control. There's a body laying right there. And then put the cuffs on him?
Yeah.
And based upon the autopsy y'all had conducted, showed that pretty much he was dead there on the ground.
Yeah, and then they put the handcuffs on him, Roland. And, you know, it begs the question, Roland Martin, because you and I talk often. I know Mustafa was on earlier, and we were talking about how much he enjoys our conversations and fighting for our people. Think about this, just opposed to Kyle Rittenhouse, the young white man in Kenosha, Wisconsin, who shot 3 people, killing 2 of them, and had an assault weapon around his neck walking towards the police. And they did not see him as a threat. Nobody attempted to arrest him. Nobody shot him in the back. Nobody killed him. But yet, a black man running away from you, who you claim has dropped the weapon, based on your own testimony, why shoot? Why treat him less than a human being when you handcuff him while he's obviously unconscious? But that's how they do our people. And it reminds me of the scene with Michael Brown and Ferguson, where the black people started gathering around. And it reminds me of George Floyd, where all the people started gathering around saying, look at the lack of humanity that they extend to our children.
That's precisely it there when you talk about that lack of humanity. You and Joshua Feast's mother first got to see this video, correct? When was that? When did the city show y'all the video before it was released to the public?
They showed it to us, Roland, on Thursday afternoon. And, you know, his mother has been such a pillar of ability for her family. He's been dignified and faithful, trying to be there for his 3-year-old son and his 5-year-old daughter, Joshua Jr. and Aaliyah. But it was when she saw that video and saw her son lying on the ground, not blurred out, because when you go to your social media and my social media, we want people to see actually him lying on that ground as his mother saw him, saying, I'm hurt, help me, I need help. And that's when she just lost it, because she's like, and he won't help my son. He shot him in the back, and now he's just gonna let him die. And that's her firstborn son, Roland. So this is why we have to bring attention to this matter, because this is the 95th person killed since George Floyd was tortured to death in Minneapolis on May 25th, 2020. The 95th black person killed. Let me be clear about that.
We are waiting to speak to the mother of Joshua Feast. They'll let me know very soon when she is on the line. Ben, we think about this case, we think about Michael Slater, we think about so many different cases where these officers firing weapons at someone who's running away. And it begs to ask the question again, why are you firing at someone who's running away, who didn't assault you, didn't fire at you, but it's sort of like, oh, I see weapon, I'm about to fire at you. I mean, and again, because here's the deal. The officers say, oh, he had a couple of felony warrants. You know who he is. You know who he is.
Yeah. Roland, it's one of the most cowardly things you can do, to fire at a defenseless man running away from you. But it's almost like a cliche, the police shooting black men in the back. When you think of Stephon Clark in Sacramento, California, in his grandmother's backyard, when you think of Laquan McDonald in Chicago running away and all 14 of those police officers lied, and questions about Rahm Emanuel, what he knew. When you think about Terrence Crutcher in Tulsa, Oklahoma, walking away with his hands up slowly, hands up, don't shoot on video, and the white policewoman, Betty Crutcher, shot him in the back. And then you think about Jacob Blake Jr. in Kenosha, running away from him. The guy grabs his shirt, shoots him 7 times, point blank range. And as Monique and I were talking about it, and then we look at Joshua Feast, and as Monique broke down to me so eloquently, you know, she's one of your panelists. Monique Presley is brilliant, and I know this is your hometown, so it's really personal to you and her. But it is this whole notion of them lying about it or attempting to lie about it. The sheriff said his investigators said that Joshua Feast pointed the gun at him and was coming towards him. And now they had to walk that back. And now they're just trying to say, oh, well, he pulled a gun on me. But I believe once the witness accounts are documented, they're going to have to walk that back because there were a lot of witnesses out there. And they say Joshua Feast never, ever pointed any weapon at this police officer. He did what most black people do when the police confront them. You try to get away from the police.
But that's it. But it's the lying. It's the lying. This to me sounds just like Laquan McDonald. When they lied, the cop said, oh, Laquan McDonald was charging at the cop. And then the videotape that Rahm Emanuel tried to suppress until it was released showed exactly what happened. He was not coming forward. It was a flat out lie. And this is what I also keep saying. When these cops lie in these statements, that should be automatic termination.
Exactly, Roland. And I don't even understand how this particular officer, Officer Jose Santos, even has a job now. Because when you look at what he did in 2013 to an unarmed black man, Reginald Davis, how they kicked him and stomped him and hit him and put his head underwater in Galveston, Texas, when he was with the Galveston Police Department, it begs the question. But it leads us to a larger conversation, Roland Martin, and you're the perfect person to have this conversation with your political acumen. The fact that Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden are talking about the need to have this national police registry of misconduct so they can't brutalize our people at one department and then be allowed to resign and then go to the next county and get another job at another police department, and then the brutality escalates to murder. We saw that with Tamir Rice, 12 years old in Cleveland, when that officer had been forced to resign, and then 6 months later, the Cleveland Police Department hires him, and then less than 2 weeks, he shoots that 12-year-old baby on the playground by himself in less than 1.7 seconds when he pulls up. Well, Officer Santos, it continued his propensity to use excessive force against black people led to Joshua Feast's death. And Joshua Feast should be here this Christmas with his 3-year-old son, Joshua Jr., and his 5-year-old daughter, Alea. But yet, because this officer was allowed to keep his badge and gun after his conduct had been condoned, and it was heinous how they beat that brother up in 2013. But yet we see what happens when you don't condemn that behavior. It leads to our children being killed.
Looks like we're having some difficulty reaching Lakeisha Feast. So hopefully we'll be able to get her on the show tomorrow. Ben, we certainly appreciate you joining us, sharing this information with us. It's a story that we certainly are going to continue to cover. And again, and to your point, George Floyd was murdered Memorial Day in May of 2020. And we continue to see these actions take place by police departments, which shows you why you need the George Floyd Justice Act on the federal level, which shows you why you need to deal with qualified immunity, which shows you why you need to have counties and cities also changing policies. This battle, people can get mad with the slogan of defund the police, but as you said, 95 people, 95 families, 95 African Americans have, since George Floyd's death. Repeat that again, Ben, for people. I want it to sink in, especially for the people who talk about defund the police. What you said, the number 95.
Since May 25th, 2020, practically June, within a 6-month time span, 95 African Americans have been killed by the police during a pandemic, Roland Martin, during the time we all supposed to be shut down. Everything seems to have shut down in America except racism and discrimination as it relates to Black people having confrontations with police. And that's what the issue is. And that's why we have to have the Biden administration address this matter in their first 100 days. We cannot wait on this because look how many children we lost in just these last 150 days.
Absolutely sad. Ben Crump, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Roland.
Mustafa, to the point Ben made, again, people, all this brouhaha over the phrase defund the police, 95 Black people dead at the hands of cops since George Floyd was murdered less than 6 months ago.
Yeah, many of these are executions. I don't think there's any other way to say it, but then just to call out that they are executions. They are continuing to happen in our sacrifice zones, in these killing fields across our country where extreme violence is the way that the police deal with our communities. And we have to continue to push back against this. We got to make sure that there's a Department of Justice that actually is going to hold these police departments accountable when these types of acts happen. And as Ben said, we need to stop just moving police officers, bad police officers, around to different police departments when they get in trouble or they get let go by one of them. And that's the only way this dynamic is ever going to change. We got to make sure no longer having folks who should not be officers being officers. And two, we got to stop dehumanizing and allowing these areas, these Black and brown communities, to be killing fields.
This is why, Julian, when we talk about how do you impact systemic change? Actually, I'll go to Avis. This is why, Avis, we cannot pull back. This is why it has to be constant, sustained pressure and advocacy, because this system has shown itself that it'll tolerate a few protests. It'll tolerate a few months of upheaval. But the intensity of the protests in the aftermath of the George Floyd death should be the same or greater in December as it was in May.
Yeah, it's just disturbing to see this continuation. And I would argue that, to me, the focus needs to be on demilitarizing the police, because what you are seeing right here is a culture that sees the people that they are sworn to protect and defend as actually the enemy. They are treating Black people as if we are an enemy, and their whole job is to run up on us and kill us. Like it's a killing field, like it is a wartime situation. So to me, that is a focus not just on the armament that police departments have, but also on the mentality that is rampant through their culture. I'd also say that this specifically, to me, once again, shows how important these Georgia elections are. We just cannot reiterate that enough in terms of taking control of the Senate, because we saw that there was, in fact, a Justice and Policing Act that had passed the House that Mitch McConnell recently killed. That within that law, one of the many things that it had included was specifically a provision to create an accounting, a role, a database of police officers who had engaged in violent activities in one jurisdiction, so that would preclude them from going to another jurisdiction and getting rehired. Exactly the situation that happened here. And the reason why that is not law is because we had a Republican controlling the Senate and a Republican in the White House. Listen, having a Biden-Harris administration with a Democratic House but still a Republican Senate is not going to be enough to create the type of massive change that we need in terms of legislation that would prevent things like this from happening in the future.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk about the Georgia Senate runoff race, where black pastors are making it clear to Kelly Loeffler, back up when it comes to your attacks on the black church. We'll also talk about a Boston cop caught on body camera footage admitting and laughing about running over protesters. That's next. Roland Martin, Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Atlanta, Georgia. We'll be back in a moment.
Trump can show up and say anything, and they can just go, oh, yeah.
And the African-American community was great to us. They didn't vote.
You know, he just called you stupid. Did you hear that? But he's for us. Really? And they were just regurgitating the things that they had heard on a radio or in the barbershop or something that somebody had told them. They hadn't thought about it. Democracy is in danger because people don't know how to think. I'm done with trying to convince people to try to vote for their, for their life. You have to run for your life. I'm gonna go try to get people who are open to it and lead them. I'm done with hope. Fuck hope, fight.
Daring to demand the right to vote for black Americans. In Selma, Alabama, 55 years ago, John Lewis was nearly killed as he and hundreds marched across this bridge. That movement's courage secured the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. But the promise of equal justice in America remains unfulfilled. So together we'll fight for a new Civil Rights Act and a new Voting Rights Act to ensure equal justice for all, no matter the color of our skin, to end racial profiling and police brutality, and to stop anyone from suppressing the sacred right to vote. Congressman Lewis gave me my first job. He instilled in me the conviction to fight for justice. He said to never give in, never give up, keep the faith, and keep our eyes on the prize. I'm John Ossoff. I approve this message.
Too many people struggled, suffered, and died to make it possible for every American to exercise their right to vote.
There's a lot of stuff to do this time of year. Get the tree. Done. Hang the lights. Not yet. Wrap presents. Check. But this year, there's one extra thing to do. Vote. That's right. Early voting starts December 14th, so make voting part of your holiday plans. It'll probably take you less time than it'll take me to do this. I'm Raphael Warnock, and I approve this message.
We learned early in Sunday school that thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not have no other gods before me. Raphael Warnock's opponent seems to have forgotten these basic Sunday school lessons.
Her gods of greed, her lies about Pastor Warnock, and her shady Wall Street practices are evidence of this. And on January the 5th, let's bear witness that greed, lies, and shady dealings don't represent Georgia. Let's send Raphael Warnock to the U.S. Senate to fight for the least of these and not Wall Street billionaires.
You are leading the way for the rest of this state. And we believe that this state is on the verge of shocking the entire country.
Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on. What y'all know about that damn office? And ultimately, we know we can't let nobody turn us around.
If it turns out that the Senate is hinging on one seat and there's only one race left, that's right. This will literally be the epicenter of the entire country, right? So we ready.
music has an ability to be able to help us feel connected. And that's because music has a way of speaking for the spirit. And it is the spirit we're going to change this country with. It is going to be standing in a space of our power and in the fullness of our spirit of love and the spirit of humanity. That is what's going to transform America.
In an open letter published on Saturday, dozens of black church leaders from Georgia ordered or demanded that Senator Kelly Loeffler to cease and desist her false characterizations of Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock. The various pastors, the Ministerial Alliance, believe Loeffler's claims that Warnock is radical and a socialist are baseless and a broader attack against the black church and Warnock's faith. Loeffler called Warnock a radical liberal 13 times during their debate on December 6th and has criticized the pastor in ads for his association with Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright. Now, Loeffler responded to the letter and Warnock on Twitter by saying, quote, "No one attacked the black church. We simply exposed your record in your own words." Joining us right now is Reverend Darrell Winston of Darrell Winston Ministries and Bishop Carl McRae of Exousia Lighthouse International Christian Ministries. Is that correct? I think I pronounced it right.
That is correct.
All right, then. First of all, let me start with you, Reverend Winston. This letter, very strong language, highly critical of Kelly Loeffler, also by saying, ripping her for her comments about Black Lives Matter, saying she's been quiet about the Proud Boys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The sheer hypocrisy, taking a page from Trumpism, where they think that they could say anything to spew lies and deceit, and thinking that we should just take it lying down. And we're saying to her in no uncertain term, as my grandmother and the elders used to say, growing up, you're a lie and the truth is not in you.
The thing that we're seeing, Bishop McRae, again, Republicans love to talk about faith. They appeal to white conservative evangelicals. They said that folks should not question the faith of Amy Coney Barrett when she was nominated to the Supreme Court, yet they have no problem questioning the faith of Pastor Raphael Warnock.
That is exactly what they said, Brother Roland. They, the cognitive dissonance in that lot, and I do want to say all of them, is amazing to me. That they can stand in judgment of and parse every word uttered by this pastor even 15, 20 years ago. And then to, in her own voice, call what, if anyone were to question the spiritual bona fides of Amy Coney Barrett, she called it disgusting. And that yet she turns around and robotically, repeatedly attacks Reverend Warnock and expect us to let that go unanswered. I don't know what planet she's existed in, but the time has come where we will push back at full-throated at the lies that they hurl and expect them to somehow manifest as truth. We know Scripture. We know our relationship with God. We know the prophetic tradition of Jesus Christ. And we understand that they have co-opted Christianity, but we're taking it back. We're taking it back.
The thing that's also interesting here, Reverend Winston, the thing that's very interesting here when we look at what is going on in this race, when the fact that Kelly Loeffler, one of her first appearances after she replaced Johnny Isaacson, was going to Ebenezer Baptist Church for MLK Day celebration. So, and it's like, so you thought it was so radical, yet you showed up.
And I was there. She was glad to be in the number, or she acted as if she was just glad to be in the mix. And in fact, she spoke and she was very gracious, and she even remarked that She looked forward to coming back again. And so we know then that they are taking this bread and butter play from the late Lee Atwater, who got his from Nixon, the whole Nixonian playbook, to stroke the fear in their voting bloc. This fear-mongering, sheer racism, but we detest the mockery. And to make mockery, we know that the Euro-American churches and white evangelicals have long expressed their disdain for the African-American congregations and despising prophetic preaching. I told them this morning, we forget that when Dr. King spoke out against the Vietnam War at Riverside in 1967, he was persona non grata. And then now all of them claim to love Dr. King and seek to hijack his message. They talk about the 63 Dr. King, but they don't want to deal with that 67 and 68 Dr. King that call for the redistribution of wealth. And so we're saying, because you got people in our community who are ahistorical, they don't have a sense of historical continuity, they don't see anything wrong. And so we're so grateful that these over 100 interfaith clergy decided to join us, and more are saying, add me to the list. And in the next few days leading up to the election, we have a multi-tier approach where we're going to be pushing back, because we know then that they, meaning the powers that be and those who bow at the shrine of Trumpism, will say anything or try to get away with saying anything and think that we're supposed to accept it.
Well, one of the things that also jumps out at me on this is that she's attacked him saying he's anti-Israel. Yet there have been a number of Jewish leaders who come out in support of Raphael Warnock. You've got John Ossoff, who is Jewish, who's running with him. So you would think if somebody was so anti-Jewish, they would not be supporting him. But again, what people need to understand, when white conservatives say he's anti-Jewish, they really are appealing to those white conservative evangelicals who hold this very lofty view, this biblical view of Israel.
They equate and Zionism with Judaism, and many rabbis here in Atlanta and abroad are working now on a piece where they are addressing the Jewish community, long history with the African American church. One of my favorite, Rabbi Joshua Heschel, who Dr. King marched with, and other rabbis were right there in the midst. So Ebenezer and Warnock has maintained a long history of working in the Jewish community. The services are often interfaith in terms of the commemorative services that the King Center runs there, but there are many different, for instances, Warnock's and the good people of Ebenezer interface and interacting with the Jewish community. And as you know, as of late, there has been this whole push toward silencing and muzzling prophetic preaching that, of course, is concerned not just with redemption from personal sins, but addressing, as Jesus did, those oppressive conditions caused by man. So we ought to be able to say, all Palestinian lives matter. That's preachers of the gospel. Cuban lives matters, and lives in the Congo matters. For them to seek to check the preacher is an attempt to do what they wasn't able to do in times past, but they think that they can now push us into a corner where we just sit down and preach an otherworldly by and by when we die message, so that we can become enablers of systemic evil that they perpetuate on a daily basis.
Well, I certainly hope that folks in Georgia are going to respond in kind to what is happening by turning out at the polls. The best way to shut them up is to beat them. Simple as that. Gentlemen, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you, Roland, for having us. Love your show, and we appreciate you opening up your platform for us to share.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, here in the United States, more than 17.9 million people have contracted COVID, and more than 318,000 Americans have died from the virus. Many people who are skeptical when it comes to getting the vaccine, however, first, many people are skeptical to getting it, but the head of Doctors COVID-19 Consortium decided to take the vaccination. Many people are skeptical about whether the COVID vaccine is safe to take. President-elect Joe Biden today received his first dose of the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID vaccine live on television.
Did he get to pick his Band-Aid? Oh, I've got a Band-Aid. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Got it up higher? All right.
Would you like me to count to 3?
No, you just go ahead anytime you're ready. It's worth saying that this is great hope. I'm doing this to demonstrate that people should be prepared when it's available to take the vaccine. There's nothing to worry about. I'm looking forward to the second shot. So is Jill. She's had her shot earlier today. She loves shots, I know. In the meantime, I know I don't want to sound like a sour note here, but I hope people listen to all the experts and the Dr. Fauci's on, talking about the need to wear masks during this Christmas and New Year's holidays, wear masks, socially distance, and if you don't have to travel, don't travel. Don't travel. It's really important because we're still in the thick of this. It's one thing to have the vaccine show up at a hospital. There's another thing to get the vaccine from that vial into a needle, into an arm. And there's millions of people out there that are going to need this.
Mustafa, we saw there where President-elect Joe Biden taking the shot. Look, you ain't going to see Donald Trump sitting his ass down taking the shot, even though he actually contracted coronavirus, because he doesn't care about actually leading by example. What he chose to do is to be stuck on stupid. You've had these White House Christmas parties packed with people, and guess what? There have been people coming home testing positive for COVID-19. You got to be dumb as hell to go to the White House for anything with COVID, with that place being a major spreader of COVID-19.
Well, we should just call out the fact that the White House is a petri dish. If you go in there, you know you're probably going to end up getting something that is not going to be helpful to your body. I really appreciate President-elect Biden for his leadership. You know, not just sharing words with folks, but actually putting that together with the actions, you know, sitting down, having a mask on, getting the vaccine, and then continuing the conversation with the country that it doesn't stop there, that we still have actions that we can do to help us to deal with the pandemic that we find ourselves in by not traveling, by doing the social distancing and the other things that CDC and others have shared with us will help us to win on the pandemic.
Julian, it's not that actually hard to lead, but you kind of got to want to. And what we have here is a petulant child who is so angry and upset that he lost, that he just simply can't help himself, just whine and complain. And that's what we're seeing from Donald Trump. And frankly, according to White House aides with various reports, he's just said, what the hell? He doesn't care about coronavirus, doesn't care about the response. He's just mad and ticked off and is sitting here just on Twitter because he lost. That's what, he's literally acting like a spoiled brat.
Actually, Roland, you are giving spoiled brats a bad name. This man is a 70-some-year-old overweight child who, if you could just picture him laying on his back with his feet kicking because angry that he lost. But that's not the point here when we have 315,000 Americans who have perished because of coronavirus. When he continues to have rallies, to have parties, or to have his people have parties, to do all of that, it's an absurdity that we cannot fathom, because really what he essentially seems to be trying to do is to basically salt the earth so that when President-elect Biden comes in, he has an even greater burden to deal with. Even more than that, we know that there are so many irregularities. How you gonna go to the Supreme Court at the last minute, ask them to turn the election over when they already said they weren't gonna do it? Here's why. So you can raise money. So we've got this guy who is acting like the last of the living boneheads, and that's the nicest word I can use on the air. Last living boneheads, basically undermining our democracy. This is a pandemic that is killing people, and many of us have had to moderate our behavior. My mama is 92 years old. She's had a stroke. I want to go home more than I want to do anything else, Roland, but I can't. First of all, my sisters told me to keep your black you-know-what in Washington because I'm over 65 and I'm diabetic. But secondly, all of us have had to make these kind of adjustments in our lives. And meanwhile, this man is sitting there acting like a you-know-what. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. But the worst part of this is that his Republican colleagues will not call him on it. A few of them have, but not many have. And so America is taking the hit. All of us are taking the hit, and he is not responsible, nor are his colleagues.
And the thing, Avis, that is just that continues to be just stunning, is that these MAGA, I call them maggots, these MAGA idiots are so deranged that they are just beside themselves when it comes to wearing masks. I mean, it's like, how dare you? I mean, when you see them just in fact, watch this here. This is some video on my iPad. This is a video on my iPad. Okay, y'all, this fool laid down. This fool laid down in the middle of the store on the floor. He laid down. We're going to try to get the video straight for you in just a second. We're having a slight technical issue here. But he is so mad and upset. He is so mad and upset, he was asked to wear a mask. He lays down in the middle of the floor. That's a grown-ass man, Avis.
It is cult-like behavior. I think we really should examine this. You have cult-like behavior. Individuals have been brainwashed by the propagandist in chief. And they have been brainwashed to the degree that they will believe anything that he says, even if it puts them in mortal danger, even if it puts their family in mortal danger. This is literally the equivalent of drinking the Kool-Aid, in real time. They are willing to risk their lives, their families' lives, and by the way, our lives when we have to interact in public with them, because they are so blindly loyal to a pathological, lying, narcissistic psychopath. It is absolutely crazy. And, if there was, at what point, at this point, I guess we're almost done with it. But I have to tell you, I'm beginning to wonder why we even have the 25th Amendment. Because this man is a clear and present danger to the citizens of the United States. You can look at it from the standpoint of COVID. You can look at it from the standpoint of, having Russian bounties on the heads of soldiers and doing nothing about it, all the way up to having Russians infiltrate all of our major federal agencies and having nothing to say about that either. He's clearly a plant, and he's clearly someone who is spreading lethal misinformation to literally millions of people.
I've got to show you one more video, and we're going to play the audio on this one as well. And again, the sheer stupidity of these people. Wearing a mask is not hard. It's not. But for these people, you swear it's the end of the world. Watch this and listen.
That is not a law. That is not a law. Step away. Back the fuck up from me. Why are you so close? You can't break illegal removal. Why are you supposed to leave the store now? Why? What are you going to do? Why? Why? This is all for you people. Out. Now. Why? You no longer belong here. What? You do not belong in this store. What do you mean? Why? Step away from me. Step away from me. I'm not regulating. It's a regulation. This is a public establishment. I am a customer. Privately owned? Really? So, okay? Suck a fucking dick. Suck a fucking dick.
Merry Christmas, man.
I'm out. Merry fucking Christmas, everyone. This is a public establishment. I have a fucking right to be here. You don't? Yes, I do.
Look. I say just drag their asses out the store. You know what? I say get like a 10-foot pole and just poke their ass. And get out, just poke their ass and put some hot, put some hot, put that sucker in a fire and brand their ass. I'm gonna stick you with. I mean, this is just dumb. And it's freedom. It's a public place. 318,000 people are dead, and these people, you're just infringing on my liberties. I'm an American. And it's led, Mustafa, by the person sitting in the Oval Office because he refuses to wear a mask. He refuses to abide by any rules, and they are emboldened by his stupidity. And so I'm of the opinion, hey, if y'all want to follow his dumb ass and y'all get COVID and die, go right ahead.
Yeah, that would be all right if we couldn't actually get COVID. But as Ava said, shared, there is an interconnectedness by the actions that people did. It's interesting that when you had the gentleman laying on the floor and then you had the other person, using that language and actually trespassing after he was asked to leave, that folks, weren't getting arrested. I've seen folks lay down to stop trucks from coming into their community because they're afraid of getting poisoned. And I've seen young black and brown children be in a department store, and because, they may have had a moment, people talking about, well, they needed to be, arrested, but yet these folks are not being arrested. So we need to actually call that out. And then we need to also just remind folks that we had the opportunity to impeach Trump, and folks decided not to move forward on that and make that become a reality. And if so, look how different this COVID-19 moment would have been. Hopefully that he would have not been in leadership and so many lives would not have been lost.
Well, that is certainly the case. All right, folks, got to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Trump supporters targeting a black family in Texas. Also, Morris Day joins us right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered to talk music and his book. All of that next. Broadcasting live from Atlanta, where we are covering the Georgia Senate runoff here in the Peach State. Back in a moment.
You wouldn't have so many people trying so hard to stop you from voting. There is some value there. But even when you talk about that people are not paying attention to your issues, I can't pay attention to your issues if I don't even know you're there. And the only reason people are going to know you're there is when you show up to the polls and vote. That's when that power manifests itself. But as long as you stay home, as long as you're making excuses, then guess what? You will always experience these issues that we're experiencing today. And another thing, don't get caught up in the candidates, right? There's no such thing as a perfect candidate, but you should be going to vote for the most important person, and that is you and the one you love. You talk about you'll fight for the one you love. You're willing to die for the one you love. You need to ask yourself, are you willing to vote for the one you love? Because if you don't, there's going to be somebody's neck on yours pretty soon.
There are a lot of folks out here who don't want you to vote. And they're doing everything to keep you from voting because they don't want you to have power. They don't want you to have the money. They don't want you to have the resources to have a decent quality of life. And those are some of the people who are living in the best styles with the most money in this country. So if you don't want
to have them continue to tell you what you can't have, you better get out here and vote.
Georgia, you're not just voting for you. No, you're voting for me too. Georgia, I got you on my mind. You have got a chance today to keep the U in USA. Oh, Georgia, say, can you see? You could save my democracy. Oh, Georgia, you're not just voting for you. No, you're voting for me too. Georgia, you're not just voting for you. No, you're voting for me too. I know you gotta be tired of washing hands and wearing masks, but you could save the planet's ass. Oh, Georgia, we're all waiting to see if you've left the Confederacy. Well, welcome to the 21st century. No, you're voting for me too. You could sit around and mope and say, yo, what's the difference? Or you could just get out and vote. Just 2 senators in blue. Georgia, you know what to do. Georgia, you're not just voting for you. No, you're voting for me too. No, Georgia, put love back in the world. Who better than a fine Southern girl? Well, Georgia, come on and give it a whirl, 'cause you're voting for me too. Yes, you're voting for me too. Make January 5th a belated Christmas gift. Georgia, you know what to do. QAnon conspiracies, vote that crap away from me. Georgia, you know what to do. Georgia.
In Dallas, a black family believes they were the target of a hate crime after putting up a Black Lives Matter sign in front of their home. Jayla Gibson and Charles Crawford say they woke up to one of the cars engulfed in flames and the message Trump 20 spray painted on their garage. Their BLM sign was also vandalized. The Little Elm Police Department and federal authorities are investigating to see whether this was indeed a hate crime. All right, folks, one of America's greatest racists will no longer be honored in the U.S. Capitol. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam announced that Virginia's statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee was removed overnight from the United States Capitol. The Confederate statue will be removed to the Virginia Museum of History and Culture in Richmond and will be replaced with a statue of civil rights icon Barbara Rose Johns. Johns is a historical figure who fought school segregation in 1951 when she was only 16 years old. She led a walk-out protesting inferior conditions at Robert Russa Motion High School, which was an all-black school in Farmville, Virginia. This is the video. This is the folks. Let me know if y'all have the video. The video that was shot. Tim Kaine. Go ahead and pull the audio up, please. So what you're seeing, folks, those are workers removing. Of course, this has long been a point of contention that in the U.S. Capitol, there's Statuary Hall. And in Statuary Hall, Avis, each state gets to have 2 statues. And folks have long been critical of states that have honored Confederate heroes. In Florida, they replaced one of those statues with Mary McLeod Bethune. Other states, Tennessee, Mississippi, so there are different states there. and the states get to choose what statue represents them. And so, for a lot of African Americans, you're in Mississippi, you don't want to go to the state capitol, and one of your two statues is the Trader Jeff Davis. In Virginia, they had Robert E. Lee, who wasn't even from Virginia. And so, this to me, this change when Democrats took control of the state legislature, that again shows the power of voting when you put the folks you want in office who can make these sort of changes. And I know somebody will say, oh, this is just all cosmetic, but the reality is we should not be honoring people in this country who wanted to ensure the people who look like us would remain in slavery.
Absolutely. And I would have to say, symbols matter. If symbols didn't matter, there would not be a proliferation of Confederate monuments all across this country. They were erected for a reason, to perpetuate a false sort of retelling of history that lionized these people who were actually traitors and racist people who wanted to keep people like you and me in bondage for all of our lives. So it's very important that even today, with all the various challenges that we continue to face, that we also go back and right the wrong of exalting these individuals who are enemies, not only to this nation, but enemies to this people. And I would just have to quickly say, in terms of Governor Northam, he got into some hot water a few months back with regards to pictures that emerged of him in his youth. But I have to say, since then, he has definitely been moving forward in a direction that I have been, pleasantly surprised with. And this is just another example of work that I'm happy that was done, because it's no reason why we should have a Robert E. Lee in the Capitol building in any way, shape, or form connected to the state of Virginia or this nation as a whole.
When we talk about looking back on history and acknowledging a racist past, that's what the Kansas City Star did. They are apologizing for decades of racist coverage of African Americans in Kansas City, Missouri. Mike Fannin, who has been the Kansas City Star's editor since 2008, wrote in a letter to readers, the newspaper, quote, disenfranchised, ignored, and scorned generations of black Kansas Cityans. It reinforced Jim Crow laws and redlining. Reporters took a look through the newspaper's archives and found the paper usually painted black people as perpetrators and rarely covered issues that black people faced. For instance, the paper covered military actions overseas, but not the bombings of black families that took place not far from the paper's location. Fannin said the death of George Floyd earlier this year and the protests that took place around the world made the paper examine its history and how it covers issues plaguing the black community. That, Julian, is important because it forces institutions to reckon with their past, and then for them to say, how does our past still impact our present and future? When you look at the lack of African Americans in these newsrooms, many black folks, the sole journalists in a lot of these places. And so that was a great thing the Kansas City newspaper did over the weekend.
It was a wonderful thing for them to do, but they have to do a lot more. They have to go back and not only give the macro, but also the micro. In other words, to take Tulsa, Oklahoma as an opportunity to look at this, we know that the newspapers buried the story about the burning of Black Wall Street. They made it sound like Black people had done something when in fact, we know more than 300 people died. We know that white folks went and ravaged the Black community. I mean, it was called the Tulsa Up, whatever they called it, it was inaccurate. We can go back through many, many, many. So I'm going to give KC props for raising it. But what I would really like to see for them also to do is to go back and look at some of these stories and just really give us the details on them. When we look at a Robert E. Lee as an example and taking that statue down, a lot of people are going to say it's symbolism. It's not just symbolism. This man graduated from West Point, which was a U.S.-funded military academy. He then turned tail on his country because he cared more about Southern white people than about our nation. Nation wasn't perfect. Let's be clear. But he chose to turn tail on our country. So this is a time of reckoning in so many ways, and it's an important time of reckoning. We want to give people credit who are doing the right thing, but we also want them to understand that one step is not the long step. So someone at the KC paper has to really go back into those archives and talk more about this. Someone in Tulsa has to talk about what those newspapers did. And it's not just the South. I mean, I've been working on this book forever, but we look at California, my home state, which had laws on their books against, quote, miscegenation. Liberal California. We need to look at some of that. There's just so much work to do, but we have to do it. If we don't do it, we'll never have peace.
The reason I think this is critically important, Mustafa, is because the media played such a huge role in the advancement of white supremacy in this country. The media played a huge role in the denigration of black people. It played a huge role in how we were portrayed, how we were ignored. And frankly, part of the problem today is that present-day media outlets want to live in complete ignorance of that. I'm Vice President Digital of the National Association of Black Journalists. And we went after CNN for no black executive producers, no black vice presidents, no black senior vice presidents, no black executive vice presidents, no black direct reports. That was a reason. Because it made no sense how we could be in 2019 and there literally be no black people in leadership positions. And so I think media has gotten off too lightly over the years. I think media all too often has skirted its responsibility and acted as if, oh, how we can, and this is my challenge, and we've had meetings with Verizon Media, with Disney, with Penske Media, with a number of people, CBS, NBC, and what we've said is, how can media challenge other folk on race and hiring and their culture when they don't want to look at themselves? And the Kansas City Star, with this report, look at themselves. Now what I would hope is they now go inward and say, let's examine the culture of our newsrooms and how African Americans stand. We don't have Mustafa, so let's go to Avis. Avis, pick up on that point.
Yeah, it is absolutely essential that organizations have black people in positions of power, positions of decision-making, that we are part of not only those who report the news, we are part of those who decide what news to report. And it's absolutely critical that that is true in every way, shape, or form, whether that's television, whether that's newspapers, every type of media platform that exists, there needs to be black decision makers. That said, it's also the fact that there isn't to any significant degree, once again shows how important true black-owned media is. Because we have to understand that when you sit down and at home and you turn on the television and you watch a certain show, or you pick up a newspaper or go to the newspaper's website these days and read that story, you have to think, who made the decision about what was going to be covered and what wasn't going to be covered? Who made the decisions about who was going to be booked and who wasn't going to be booked? Who made the decision about what sort of opinion pieces were going to be given the green light and what sort of opinion pieces were going to be kicked to the curb, or what stories were going to be pursued and what stories were going to be ignored? You know, that colors, no pun intended, the information that you receive on a daily basis. And because those types of organizations tend to not have people that look like you and me in those decision-making positions, what we get are a very tilted and very specific view of reality. And so having black-owned media that shows our interests, that centers our needs, that puts on experts that are versed in how issues impact our lives, is critically important. It's not really happening to a great degree in normalcy in quote unquote mainstream media and some of these other places. And so we have to be able to do that ourselves. And luckily, we are in the position, particularly, for example, with a show like this, in which we can.
Well, that's precisely why we have it, because we are not about allowing somebody else to tell our story. Speaking of telling our story, this is an unbelievable story out of Baltimore. Well, first of all, for us, it's not unbelievable. That's also why we have these cameras to listen and see and hear what folk are talking about. Of course, this year we saw protests erupt nationwide after the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and others. Yet in Boston, something peculiar happened in Boston. Check out this video of a police officer. You can hear him bragging about running over protesters.
Let's get this fucker. Let's get him. Get him. Lock him out. Start spraying the fuckers.
Dude, I drove down the street. There was an unmarked state police cruiser. They were all fucking around. So I overcommit. So I got to fucking Tremont Park, and I was in the middle of fucking. So then I had to fucking keep coming. Fucking running. I'm fucking hitting people with the car. Did you hear me? I was like, get the fucking.
This thing is on. This thing is.
Oh no! I know. What I'm saying is, though, they were in front, just didn't hit anybody, and just driving. It's shit. My windows were closed. The shit was coming in the fucking way. Whether it was piss or I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Fucking crazy, dude.
Push this crowd backwards. We keep going further.
This thing just fucking went on automatically. Huh? This thing just went on fucking automatically.
There you go. That's your offer.
It's pretty nice.
They're walking around close. From everywhere.
Is it a $50 tie? Nazi fucking Germany. Is this what y'all want? I want it to be like Nazi Germany, right? You need some papers? You want to see my papers? Hey. I'm still out here. I'm still out here. I'm still out here. This is for George Floyd.
Mustafa, if you're a cop and you're bragging about running over protesters, imagine how it feels when you're patrolling black neighborhoods.
Yeah, people telling you just how they really feel about folks. You know, we need to remember in Charlottesville, when that young man used his automobile and killed someone, And how easy is it in all that chaos for somebody to slip underneath of the wheel of a car, of a police car, of a cruiser, and someone to lose their life? If you or I do it, vehicular manslaughter is 10 years in jail. Second-degree vehicular manslaughter is 75 months, $250,000 fine. It's a real easy way to make sure that that doesn't happen. One, train your officers, and two, if they can't live up to it, they don't need to be police officers.
Roland,
and this is just, go ahead.
I went to undergraduate and graduate school in Boston. I was there from 1970 to 1977. The Boston kind of racism is a special kind of racism. The police have been trained essentially to abuse Black people. I mean, I will never forget Louise Day Hicks, who was on the school board when they were trying to integrate schools. And this big old fat white woman said they would have to run over her dead body before Black children were able to go to white schools in South Boston. This is Boston. So this is Boston. I'm not saying that Boston is special around its racism, but what I'm saying is when I watched the tape, I just recalled so many things. And the bottom line here is that they do not value Black people. This is why the slogan, that Black Lives Matter, is so important, because it has not been that important in places like Boston and others.
Right.
A Black man named Ed Lansdowne had a flag. He was impaled by a flag in front of City Hall because he was protesting. So white folks just took a flag and impaled him. And it was okay. Nobody was ever arrested. And this happens time and time again. So I just, we have been, as Black people, extraordinarily tolerant, extraordinarily understanding. And it's time for us to get about 10,000 Ben Crumps to sue the you-know-what out of these people.
Totally understand. Got to go to a break, folks. When we come back, we'll talk with Mars Day. Music, books. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
This generation, which gets so much inspiration from entertainment, this generation is influenced. I mean, every generation has their influence.
Yep.
But I would argue, by and large, when you talk about Harry Belafonte, or you talk about how it was, in the 60s, 70s, and even 80s. There was, you had the entertainers, you had the church, you had the activists. In our day and time, the church is somewhat losing its influence. Entertainment influence is growing. The activists are losing their influence. So where do most, this younger generation go? They go to entertainment. And so the influencers' entertainment can actually move the needle. And when you see people become active, I love how this younger group of people are saying, wait a minute, we don't like what just happened with Kavanaugh. We're going to do something about it. We don't like the fact that there's no gun control. We're going to do something about it. And I do think that as tragic as these events are, they are becoming more galvanizing to get this younger group of voters, which is so influential, to get out and do what we know they can do, which is to help move the needle in a massive way.
America is a complicated story of people building a more perfect union. And if you don't think there's been any change, you should sit down with Andrew Young. You should sit down from some of the folks in that generation who know the distance we've come. And as we continue to push hard, change comes. The other side knows your power. The other side knows your voice. That's why they're engaged in voter suppression. If you weren't so powerful, they wouldn't be trying so hard to stop you from voting. And so you ought to stand up in this defining moment in American history and win the future for all of our children.
We're at Mom's Kitchen in Preston, Georgia. It's a family business. I enjoy making people happy, giving them a good meal. But since COVID, we had to close our main dining room. We lost all of that business, and we used to do a lot of caterings. We can't do any of that anymore. David Perdue knew what was about to happen. He was getting classified briefings about the pandemic. But instead of him being concerned about us, he off selling stock. We had no idea we'd have to close our businesses off. We'd lose caterings, and so many people died. And then when we needed help the most, he fought against the stimulus checks. and to cut unemployment insurance. Purdue needs to come out and Ossoff in. Early voting starts December 14th. You got to make a plan to vote.
I'm John Ossoff, and I approve this message.
We have always used music to speak up for us, but we have been unheard, underestimated, and undervalued throughout our existence. But it's time we play a new song. We can make the rules. We can choose the leader, and our vote can make the difference.
Just watch how I do it.
We know by now that change will not come to us.
Just watch how I do it.
Black voters matter. It's our party. Step into your moment.
All right, folks, I was flying to Atlanta this morning, early flight, 7 a.m., and so I needed a little pick-me-up music. And so I had to put on a whole bunch of different songs, and one of the songs, of course, Jungle Love by Morris Day and the Time. Of course, Morris Day is known for his relationship with Prince, with the band. He's got a new Christmas single out called Cooler Than Santa Claus, and he joins us right now. Morris Day, what's happening?
What's going on, Roland? How you doing?
So you cooler than Santa Claus?
Hey, you know it.
I gotta ask you this here, man. It has to be a trip for folk who still just respond to you and Jerome and the Time. Every time I see Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. I mean, look, there have been lots of bands, but man, y'all kept it funky.
We kept it funky, and you know, we had an all-star band. I mean, just think about it. You know, like you said, Terry and Jimmy. I mean, you know, we were all just teenagers loving our music. Terry and Jimmy, Jesse Johnson, you know, Jerome, we just had an all-star band, and we just kind of, you know, lucked up on it. I don't know if you want to call it luck or God's plan, but, you know, we had one of the greatest bands in history, in my opinion.
Well, and I think that is the case. And I think a lot of times, and again, as somebody who loves music, as somebody who, because in fact, Jimmy and I always talking about this here, he's always sending me cuts. He's like, man, I know how you love music. I mean, y'all played instruments. This wasn't a bunch of dudes on stage with 5 or 6 mics, and that was the other thing. There's just something different about when that band is jamming and keeping it funky.
Well, not only that, Roland, you know, we played instruments, but we had songwriters, producers, you know, some of the elite in the industry, you know, from Prince on down, and you know, that just takes the whole thing to another level.
Let's talk about that. I played the George Lopez golf tournament, and Jimmy Jam he's often playing in the golf tournament, and so we're always having a little fun. I gotta find a video. There's a video of us all on one of the tee boxes doing the bird. It's pretty hilarious. And we're always out there doing it. And he was telling us this story about how y'all, with your band and Prince, how you drove each other. And he was saying, he said, man, there were times, he said, when we were just whooping Prince's ass. And he said, where y'all had an attitude, we gonna walk out. That was sort of like old school. When you talk back to cats with the OJs and the Four Tops, how their whole deal was when they say, okay, fine, we gonna open, we gonna set this sucker on fire, that all you gonna have are burnt embers when you walk out there. Was that rivalry? Was that about, we gonna show you our best and you gonna have to bring it if you wanna sit here and own this audience?
You know, it really didn't start out like that. But I guess what happened is we just got that damn good, you know, and so we started out, we hadn't done it before, we hadn't played in front of a large audience before, but we were tight. And that's one thing that Prince kind of, it turned into a rivalry of sorts, but he created it because he gave us a work ethic. He had us rehearse so much, day in and day out, that we were so tight that if I went left, if I forgot a lyric and I did something, the band went with me, and we just became such a tight band that, after a while, he let us know that it was a rivalry because he started to exclude us in major markets. So if we did if he did a LA or New York or Chicago, he wouldn't let the time on anymore. And we got onto it. We're like, okay, that's because we kicking that ass, but, it wasn't our intention originally. We just got that good,
Well, you would think that he would have understood that because he drove y'all there. It's sort of like, look, for me, if I've trained somebody, if I've invested in somebody, I want you to reach that point of maximizing your output. And I've always gotten a kick out of, you talked about it in other interviews and your books as well, that jealousy, that envy that was there. You talked about how he would call you to come to Minneapolis and play, and hell, wouldn't pay. And so just talk about that relationship. Was it one of those things where you were like, okay, what the hell? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it cold? Man, can you just decide?
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what it was. But, at the end of the day, as much as I would have issue with stuff like that, he was still my brother, and I know he felt that way, but, he was a very complicated individual. We all are complicated in our own way, but he was extra complicated. So,
right.
I just kind of, wrote it off as that. I never had his phone number once we got to cell phones and all of that, even landlines. I never had his number. So if I heard from him, he'd call me, and I might have one of his security people's numbers or something like that. But, I never really reached out to him. I just kind of knew that if he wanted to talk to me, he would reach out to me, which he did at obscure hours of the morning and night, and it was all good,
You gave an interview that I found to be quite fascinating, where at the end of his life, he said something to you when he said that he loved you.
Yeah.
And it caused you to go, this is different.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other people, and they've talked about how in those final few months, they literally saw this transformation, that something was happening. And then, of course, when they began to reflect on it after he passed, they saw that he knew what was coming. He felt it, and he knew that his time was near.
Yeah, I think he knew because, as you said, he had asked us to do shows. We show up. I fly my band in on my own expense, and then he changed his mind, and really, and not even really have a second thought about it. And so I had sort of got to the point where I said, look, if Prince wants us to do a show, then he has to send us the money 100% up front. I'm not, going in like that anymore, where I just am I'm at his disposal, whether he, and out of my pocket. So anyway, this last show, 2 months prior to him passing, I said, yeah, he wanted us to do a show at Paisley Park. I said, of course, but you got to, not me telling him, but his people, you got to send the money up front. And he did, to my surprise. And so when I got there, he was really happy to see me, and likewise, I was happy to see him, and we chopped it up. We did the show. And, after the show, he wanted to talk. So we went into the cafeteria area of Paisley Park. And we talked for an hour and some, and plus. And in leaving, he gave me a hug and said, "I love you." And I'm like, I've been knowing this man since we were kids. And that is a phrase that he has never, ever spoken to me. So I just, it caught me off guard. And then, once I got back home, I was just thinking, I was like, what was that? And sure enough, 2 months later, I was flying to Florida from Las Vegas. And I had a layover in Chicago, and I heard that someone had passed away at Paisley Park, and they said that it was an employee. And a buddy of mine called me, said, "Did you hear the news?" I said, "Yeah, somebody who worked there." And he said, No. He said it was Prince. And my buddy's family is in the media, so they had firsthand information. And it didn't hit me right away, but like midnight that night, once I got to Florida, it hit me like a ton of bricks. The history, because I've really not had people that close to me pass away, and that really hit me hard.
It was interesting you say that because I saw something the other day on Twitter, and people were talking about how his passing affected them more than any other. And the reality is, look, as a journalist, I was in Jamaica when Michael Jackson died. I remember being in Houston when Whitney Houston died, and I remember. But when I think about a lot of his passing, actually had more of an impact on me than the other celebrity deaths. And and we were talking about that, and folks were asking why. I had the occasion to meet him on a couple occasions, to go to a party at his home. Then I found out I was interviewing Shelby J, and then she told me, she says, "Oh, Prince had your book, your faith Facebook." And she said, because one day he brought it to me in the kitchen and said, "You need to read this." Van Jones said, "Man, you would have sworn you and Prince were buddies because he would often talk about your work." And I always, of course, loved the music, and being somebody who played in elementary school, middle school, high school band, always enjoyed music. But it was something different and unique about him, and also all the other artists that were born out of his brilliance. And when I think about you and think about the time, and I think about the videos, and I think about, again, the infectious music, all of that, to me, it operates like a bowl of gumbo. It's all in there together, because all of y'all are going to be linked. Vanity 6 is going to be linked. You're going to have all these other different artists. Tevin Campbell is going to be linked. All of these folks who were sort of the tentacles of Prince will always be forever linked.
Very much so. And you make a good point. But I like your gumbo theory. So in that theory, brother, we were in the room. You dig? So, that's how I look at it. Right. I know there was a lot of spin-offs, but from day one. So I get it. The worldly impact that the brother had, and it was amazing to me to watch, because I've been around him since he was a kid. So the worldly impact, but my take on the whole thing was a little different. It was just not the mega artist that he ultimately became, but it was my friend. And the early days when we hung out, and I would get high, and he was pretty straight. But the times when he said, "Hey, can you get me something to smoke?" and I just want to try it. And I'm sitting on the floor of the club, babysitting this dude, and stuff like that, and the fights that we had and all of that when we were kids is the stuff that really passed through my mind, not the songs so much that I loved or anything like that. So I'm just saying that to say that it was quite different for me than, a fan.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do people still roll up on you to say, man, you killed it in Purple Rain? And why, again, why haven't you done other movies?
Okay. So, yeah, Purple Rain is one of those things that kind of shows up on TV every month, a couple times a month. And, yes, people still talk about Purple Rain to me. But my thing in acting is, I guess, is something that I'm able to do. But there's a side of me that I kind of like being my own boss. In music, I'm the boss. In film and television,
right,
there's always somebody telling you what to do. And, what time to be there, what time to get dressed, and hurry up and wait, do this, stand here, go, and, that's always been an issue for me.
Oh, great. Look, I know that point, which is why I created my own digital show, because I said, folks, when TV One ended my show, folks were like, man, it'd be great if you go to MSNBC or CNN. I'm like, you know what? I'm not really trying to ask no 32-year-old white producer permission to go cover black people. I said, I'm good. I said, I'd rather ask myself. So trust me, I understand. But I just thought, man, you were just absolutely crazy in that movie. And so I can imagine you doing something else. I got questions from our panelists. I want to first start with Mustafa Santiago Ali. Mustafa, what's your question for Morris Day?
Yeah, first of all, thanks. I watched you when I was growing up, so it's an honor to be here with you. I'm curious, I come from a social justice background, and I'm curious the role that you feel creatives, artists have in the social justice movement.
Now say that one more time. You hit me.
The role that you believe artists have in the social justice movement.
Well, sometimes, I think it's tough. I think a lot of artists are a little apprehensive of getting into the social justice situation because, I think there's a fear of alienating certain audiences, if you will. But I do think that more and more the young artists are playing a role and making a difference and making their thoughts be known.
Julianne, question for Morris Day.
Sure. You have talked about both your collaboration and your competition with Prince. And I've very much enjoyed, Roland, this conversation and appreciate it. But Morris Day, what does it say to us as we move forward in this post-whatever era about how we work together as Black people?
Well, I think, there's a lot on the table that we have to deal with. And I think there's a lot of small things that slip through the cracks. It's funny. I'm an iPhone user, and if you go to the emojis, you can change the color of the thumbs and a lot of little things. But I noticed you can't change the color of the families. And check that out. You go there and you cannot change the color of the families. The families are white. And usually if you tap it, you can go brown and go to yellow and all of that, but you can't. So I just feel like, we have, come a long way, but we have a long way to go. And there's a lot of little innuendos that we have to deal with. And, unfortunately, that's the job ahead of us.
Avis DeWeaver, your question for Morris Day.
Hi, It is such a pleasure to speak with you, Mr. Day. I've definitely been a fan of Prince. I was in the 4th grade, and I've loved the time from the very beginning. So it's my honor to speak with you this evening. You alluded to something that I think a lot of people overlook. People enjoy your music. They enjoy your contribution to the world in that way. But I think oftentimes people don't get the work that it takes to be as successful as you are in that industry. You just don't pop up one day and be as prolific a musician as you are. A minute ago, you talked about how, you practiced so much until you just, in essence, couldn't get it wrong. What can people who are not musicians learn from musicians about operating in excellence, given the work ethic that it takes to perform at the level that you do?
Well, I think you pretty much explained it. It's whatever you do, you have to strive to be the best. If you strive to be mediocre, then that's what you'll do. If you don't really care about it, how many times do you walk into a store and you have a clerk who helps you, or someone on the phone, a customer service, and they help you 100% do everything, ask all the right questions, and then how many times you walk into that same place a different day and somebody just acts like they don't want to be there. I just feel like if you're going to fill a position in life, then I would say be the best at it. I might not be the best artist, best singer, best dancer, but you can damn well believe I am the best Morris Day that you're going to ever find, So that's my advice.
All right, then. Mars, this song, Cooler Than Santa Claus, what inspired it? I mean, look, was it a matter of saying, look, there's a lot of Christmas songs out there, but damn it, you want to be original as opposed to do a remake?
No, Roland, you inspired it. You know what? I feel like this is a shout out to the brothers, to the men, to the parents, to the fathers. It's like everybody, I don't want to kill the myth of Santa Claus, but we all know that who Santa Claus is to our wives, to our kids. So I'm not saying Santa doesn't exist, but I am saying that if you really check into it, you will see Santa ain't as cool as me.
Well, I'm with you 100% because I'm all with all the myth, but yeah, your ass didn't know who bought that damn computer and bought that damn Xbox. Just letting you know.
And Santa's getting all the damn credit.
Precisely. No. Santa don't pay no bills. Boys Day, man, it's always a pleasure. Look forward to after this COVID thing. I can't wait to connect, and definitely, man, look forward to coming to one of the shows. I'm one. This is a true story. I was at NBA All-Star Game in 2011, and Sean Robinson. I had gone to a Diddy party. It was crazy. We never got in. It was all this sort of drama outside. Sean Robinson hit me up and she says, yo, you want to come to a party at Prince's house? I was like, hell yeah. And it was so funny, too, because my wife, she was, like, hot with this other party. She was hungry. She's like, look, I want to get some food. I'm going to figure it out. I look at her like, oh, hell no, we going to this damn party at Prince's house. I don't give a damn how you feel. So take this McDonald's. But put the GPS in. You can sit your ass in the car. We going to this party. I mean, that's what I'm thinking the whole time. Like, I don't give a damn how you feel. So we going to this party. Go to the party. It's only about 30 people there, man. And it's so funny because, look, I'm black. You go to somebody's black house, you speak to the person whose house it is. Well, couldn't find him, but then the DJ was gone. So I was like, well, look, I'm a dance. Okay, I ain't afraid to dance. I would sweat through a suit in a heartbeat. Okay, and so, man, we're dancing. And all of a sudden, Prince comes, walk up to me. He's like, you're welcome in my house anytime. And then, and of course, I danced all night. They, of course, put a concert on at 2:30 in the morning. We probably left around 6 a.m. About 6 months later, Sinbad said, man, Prince said you left scuff marks on his dance floor. So I'm all about, look, getting the dance on. So when you put on a show, I'm like, hey, damn all that trying to be cute, trying to be cool. You don't want to break out in a sweat. That's why they got cleaners to take care of that suit. Because I have a very simple philosophy, Morris. If I go to a concert or a party and I go home dry, I'm pissed. It sucked.
I hear you.
But if I got to get home and peel that suit off, that was a party.
Hey, that's how I am. I party, I'm cool, but I definitely have to send my suits to the dry cleaner after I'm done. Now, I want y'all to check out everything happening at morrisdayentertainment.com. We got a new single, Head Rush, featuring Trinidad James. Video about to drop. Check it out, y'all.
All right, then. Well, look, we will do that. We will certainly check it out, man. We certainly appreciate it. Good luck in all that you do. Again, y'all, his Christmas song is cooler than Santa Claus. I'll be listening to it as soon as I get done with the show. Morris Day, thanks a bunch, brother.
Thank you so much, Roland.
All right, folks. That's it for us. This is why we want y'all to support Roland Martin Unfiltered for conversations just like that. You can join us via, of course, join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support this show, the things that we do, being here on location in Georgia, covering the Georgia Senate runoff race. We live stream Vice President-elect Kamala Harris being in Columbus, Georgia today. Folks, wasn't no other black media, national black media there. Folk not on the ground like we are. We're traveling all around this state, covering these issues. And so your dollars make all of that possible. And so we want you to support us in what we do by going to our Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. You can go to RM Unfiltered and check that out, please. You can also support us on paypal.me/R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo.com is RM Unfiltered. You can also go to Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. You can support us there as well. Then, of course, you can send a money order to New Vision Media, NU Vision Media, Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. Don't forget, check out my iHeartRadio commentaries on the Black Information Network. You can also listen to the audio podcast of this show on iHeartRadio. Just simply download it and play it there as well. And so we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Folks, we had a fabulous day. We shall see you tomorrow. Enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click that button to turn on your notifications. And when we go live here from Georgia for a rally or an event, you will instantly know exactly what is going on. It's all about keeping you up to date, informed, because we keep it real, we keep it black, we keep it unapologetic, and we keep it unfiltered. I'll see y'all tomorrow.